NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
This is NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. I'm your host, Jason Dannelly. Thank you so much, NAIA fans, for checking out, what's going on in NAIA football. That's what we're here for. We're going to go through a whole bunch of games tonight. I tell you what, there were so many top-notch NAIA football games played this weekend. We've got a whole slew that we need to review, and then a whole bunch for next weekend that we need to preview. It's going to be a great show tonight. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the NAIA postseason and some of the things that are going on with that as we get closer and closer to Selection Sunday. Don't forget, we'll be your home for Selection Sunday. We'll have a show that night. We'll break down all the matchups and the picks. We'll go through it live as it's happening and let you know who's playing who on Selection Sunday. That's coming up in just about 2 weeks. At this time, I welcome in my co-host of the program, former offensive coordinator for the University of St. Francis. He's won a couple national championships, and most importantly now, hockey dad. He is Pat Donley. What's up, Pat? How are you, man?
Jason, I'm doing well. It's the best time of the year. We're getting down to it here with these playoff races. Great games yesterday. Excited about jumping in. Let's go.
Yeah, I am, man. I don't want to waste much time because otherwise this program is going to end up being like 3 hours long tonight. There's just a whole bunch of games that we need to get to. Now, with all these games going on throughout the weekend, you might be saying, Pat, Jason, you can't surely watch all those games. Well, we watch some of them live, but thanks to our good friends at Huddle and our friends in the NAIA coaching world, we get the opportunity to have these games sent to us after the fact, review them. I watched about 3 games last night. I watched another 4 this morning. Pat was out on the hockey trail, but on the way back, checking out games, seeing games last night, all thanks to our friends at Huddle who hooked us up with the direct exchange account. Thank you to Huddle and their help with the Victory Sports Network to help bring all these games. It's tremendous, isn't it, Pat?
Fantastic. It changed the game for us. And again, I praised you last week for getting it done, but you did in a couple of days. And certainly thanks to Huddle to make this possible. It is wonderful to be able to go through the All-22 film is just fantastic. So it makes this all possible, this show.
Yeah, I mean, I like watching a game live because you get the feel of it all, watching, whatever one you decided to watch live yesterday. I watched Southern Oregon and Carroll, and just the feel of that game was great. But when you can't do that, to be able to go through and go, okay, here's what happened, it's awesome. So thanks to Huddle for that. All right, let's get started with some of our non-featured games, but yet important games. We go to the Mid-States Football Association. Concordia Ann Arbor gave a little bit of trouble to Indiana Wesleyan early on in this one, Pat, but ultimately they were able to pull this one out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy game, seeing that score at halftime. We kind of know the CUAA situation, the time is ticking on that program. And it's a resilient group, really well-coached group, a proud tradition for the short time that they have been around in the NAIA playing football. And I think they're going down swinging, certainly. And Indiana Wesleyan, I'm hearing they're banged up a little bit, getting to that point now. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. If there's a team in the NAIA could just fast forward to the playoffs right now, it would be Indiana Wesleyan, I believe, because of the way they're playing, and they're starting to see some of that attrition with some injuries and guys getting banged up. So, it's an interesting one, a little bit of a head scratcher, but you see the resolve, you see, the character of IWU and, getting it done when it matters the most. It's a really great thing. I think it's something down the road for the playoffs that they can go back on this game and this experience and to overcome adversity, because they're still going to face it at some point here in the playoffs.
Yeah, they definitely will. They're going to see tougher and tougher competition, but Indiana Wesleyan pulling out the doubled-up victory over Concordia Ann Arbor. We go to the Battle of the St. Francises. This one was for sole possession of the Mid-States Football Association Midwest Division, and St. Francis, Indiana pulls out the win 28-20 over the Saints. The St. Francis of Indiana improves to 7-2 on the year. Josh Kolka, 288 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in this one. I was impressed. I watched some of this game live. Lenny Bennett, 14 carries, 112 yards. He looked really good carrying the ball, Pat.
Yeah, St. Francis is a great roster. St. Francis, I got to be specific here. St. Francis of Indiana, the Cougars, have a talented roster. And you can see this team has changed since Josh Kalk has taken over behind center. He gives a confidence. There's a little bit of a swagger to this team. I'm seeing it firsthand, being around it, obviously. Then you see it on tape. The guy can make all the throws. He's athletic. He has leadership skills. And like you said, I'm a huge fan of Bennett and a couple other running backs that the Cougars have. I almost said we. I did graduate from the University of St. Francis.
Alum. You can do it.
Yeah, I'm an alumni. Yeah. But yeah, they have good balance. I mean, again, offensively, that's really their identity right now is putting points up and great balance. Run pass. They've got some playmakers in the perimeter. They're taking the ball down the field. Big plays. We're seeing it a lot here the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's resulting in huge victories. This St. Francis, Illinois, Joliet, Illinois, the Saints. All right, to be specific, they're a good football team. I think that the Tumultees are great football players. I think it's been a grind of a schedule. They've had some big games here, and having to go to Fort Wayne, it's hard to win in Fort Wayne. I'm just going to tell you. We had a record at one point when I was coaching there. We almost beat the Miami record. We had like 52 home wins in a row. Like, it was something. It's hard to win in Fort Wayne. It is. And St. Francis of Illinois has never beaten us there. It's a tough place. And I think the Cougars are on the rise. Like, they're playing as good as they've played in the last 4 or 5 years. They've made the playoffs since 2019, Jason. I mean, it's a weird thing. A blue blood program, one of the best in NAIA history, haven't made it since 2019. So they're right on that doorstep of getting in. Got a tough St. X game next week, though.
Yeah, they do. And we'll go through all of the conferences here in just a little bit to take a look at those conference standings to kind of show you where those automatic bids are going to be. There's a lot of teams that are still on the cusp of making it. And maybe some of those teams out there that if you're a casual NAIA fan, you're going to go, wait, what? How are they going to make the postseason? We'll break all that down for you later on in the program. Plus, on Wednesday night, I'm going to have a special program here on the Victory Sports Network. I've got Dr. Jesse Godding of Nelson University. He's part of the National Selection Committee. He's the National Administrative Chair for the NAIA, kind of overseeing football. He's going to talk to us about the NAIA selection process and give some insight to the changes that have happened for the NAIA postseason. That's going to come up Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. Don't worry, we'll remind you. I was going to put it Tuesday night, but apparently there's some stuff going on Tuesday night this week nationally, Pat. That,
I forgot about that.
Might detract from some viewers. I actually think it might give people a welcome thing to look at otherwise. But anyway, we move on. Let's move on. Go to the Sun Conference. Number 1 Keiser comes away with a 34-20 victory. Early on, Weber International gave them some resistance, but Keiser doing what Keiser does, just methodically going at it. We saw it with their win over St. Thomas. We saw it with their win over Southeastern. We see it again this week with Weber International. I was interested in this game because of how Weber International really challenged St. Thomas last week in that 45-44 loss by the Warriors. They did it early on, but Keiser proving why they're the number 1 team in the country. Andrew Burnett, 26 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown. Shea Spencer, 191 yards. Rafino Van Gates, 71 yards through the air, catching, receiving, and a 75-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Keiser just too much in this game for Weber International. A great win. We've talked about some of that great running game of Keiser, and a little bit behind the scenes. Jaden Meisinger hasn't played the last couple weeks. He's still with it. He's still going at it, and I think they are positive and hoping to see him back at some point this season. So Keiser just keeping on winning there and doing what number 1 teams do, Pat.
Yeah, certainly hope we see Meisinger again. Just a tremendous player, good young man. I love this team. We all know what they're capable of. They come off a national championship. Are they better, though, is the question, because I think they're getting better quarterback play this year.
Yes.
Which I think that is something that is definitely a plus in the category. Are they better this year than last year? They had some turnover last year with the roster on defense. A lot of guys in the transfer portal going up and playing Division I. But certainly I think the quarterback position, and then thank goodness for Andrew Burnett, wonderful player, and I know they've got a stable of backs there that are working through the Meisinger injury, and we certainly hope to get him back here soon.
Absolutely. We move on to the next game. And for anybody out there watching, you want to drop us questions, throw it into the chat on YouTube or on Facebook. If you're on Twitter, throw it in the comment section. We'll try to get to it here, or on Instagram. We're streaming live on Instagram again tonight. Get in the comments. Kind of missed those the last time out. So sorry for anybody that had questions on Instagram. I'll make a point this week to get on there and answer your questions. Cumberlands challenges Georgetown as we thought they would. They led this game late before the Tigers got a late fourth quarter touchdown. They scored with 1:45 left in the game. Darius Neal, 23 carries. He's the yeoman. He's the workhorse. 114 yards, 2 touchdowns for Neal, who's a returning All-American. Justin Richardson, 8 tackles, a tackle for loss, and an interception in this game. So Georgetown getting the win. Maybe not impressively, Pat, but at this point in the season, just keep winning, baby.
Yeah, they're winning football games. I don't know if any of them have been very impressive this year, Jason, truthfully. They're not scoring a lot of points. Neal has been their best player, really the last 2 years, certainly has as an All-American. And I think he is in contention for that National Player of the Year discussion with his consistent production. You're seeing 100 yards every game from him, plus.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that, and again, that's definitely their offensive approach, being him being the focal point, and it's winning games. So this Cumberlands team, Jason, I think is going to be on the rise. I look for Coach Housekeeper to keep progressing, building off of this season. I'd love to see them, at a winning season if all possible, and continuing to build, because I think a lot of him. He was a great player, Jason, if you remember.
Oh,
I know he's a good
team.
He might be the best. If I'd say right now of all the coaches out there that were former NAIA players, that guy was the best one. He was really good. So
that's a whole nother show in itself. Best NAIA player turned coach, and Housekeeper's definitely at the top of the list. That guy was a monster. I think he was a Victory Sports Network Defensive Player of the Year. Whenever
we couldn't block him. We couldn't block him for 3 years.
Absolute monster. In the KCAC, we get a little clarity as to who is leading the conference and who actually is going to have a shot at making that postseason with an automatic bid. It's McPherson because, Pat, there's no fear.
McPherson.
That's right, baby. 8-1. McPherson goes on the road. They get the win over number 16, Evangel, 34-27. They are now in the lead of the KCAC or Kessinger division. Jaleel Brown, 30 carries. This guy, he had a game. 132 yards and 2 touchdowns and 6 receptions for 115 yards. Brown carrying it on his shoulders in this game. Also, Tristan Zabo, 21-32, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. They held EU to 296 yards in this game, and Zabo became the all-time passing leader for the Mac Bulldogs. Heck of a ball game for Mac to be able to take the lead in the conference, and now, holding all the cards to get that automatic berth out of the Kessinger division. Then we go over to the Bethel division in a game where 2 teams that were undefeated into the division. Kansas Wesleyan gets the win. They improved to 5-4. They're still undefeated in the Bissell. Luke Armstrong, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns in this 28-14 win. So right now, Pat, out of the KCAC, it's Kansas Wesleyan and McPherson in that driver's seat, baby.
How about that? It's great. McPherson's a team we didn't talk about a whole lot.
No.
And here we are. 8-1 football team, winning the games they have to. I'm gonna pay closer attention to them here and watch some of their games, hopefully. And looking forward to how this thing's going to shake out. But you got to give them tons of credit for what they've done this season.
Yeah, they lost their opening game to Tabor and then have ran the table since then and are definitely in the driver's seat in the KCAC. We'll talk more about the conference here in a little bit. Campbellsville, the Fighting Tigers, baby. Pat's Fighting Tigers.
Got it done.
Let's go. They improved 8-1. 14-10 victory. Outgained Bethel, 297-212. Defensive battle. Jagger Gillis, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns in the win for the Fighting Tigers. They're not in the NAIA coaches top 25. I see them popping into the top 25 this week for sure.
Gonna be, baby. Them and my St. Francis Cougars should be in the top 25 this week.
I think we're going to see 3 new teams in the NAIA coaches top 25. We've talked about 2 of them, and I think the other one will be Concordia out of Nebraska. I think with their win from a couple weeks ago over Northwestern, and they continue to win, they're 7-2. We're going to see them in the top 25. Just how things shake out. We'll get into all that in a little bit. Pikeville, you want to talk about we're in the driver's seat, and we must have been going through those mountain roads in Kentucky, between Kentucky and Georgia, and they came up on a curve way too fast, Pat, and they put her in the ditch. because Pikeville was undefeated in the conference. They were in the driver's seat. They were heading to the playoffs.
Right.
And this little speed bump along the way called Point in Georgia came up and beat them 23-21. Last second field goal by Point wins this one. I watched the end of this ball game. Hey, guess what? We've got a three-way tie between Point, Pikeville, and Reinhardt for that conference lead. Pikeville holds the tiebreaker over Reinhardt, but Point would hold it over Pikeville. So it's a whole scenario they go into for the tiebreaker. We'll get into it in a little bit. Hey, you can't lose these games, man. Can't lose these games.
Can't do it. I'm anxious to talk about the playoff breakdown with the three-way tie of the scenarios of what's going to happen here, what can happen, and who goes.
Yes, I will get into that in a little bit. We continue on before we get to our big featured games. College of Idaho on the road, late game last night. They go down to the Mountaineers of Eastern Oregon, 30-24. Hey, Quincy Glasper of Eastern Oregon, a guy that we haven't talked about much this year, 143 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, and then 18 carries for 213 yards and a score. Blaine Shaw, 19 tackles, 2 for a loss, 2 forced fumbles, and a total of 47 return yards off those. The wheels are coming off in Caldwell, Idaho right now. They're 6-4. Their possibilities of making the NAIA postseason this year, they're done. I mean, they're cooked. Eastern Oregon, there's a whole scenario I'll talk about. I'll get into. There's a shot, not a good one, but Eastern Oregon is still sitting pretty good. Great game by EOU to get the home win. And if there's anything we keep seeing in the Frontier Conference, good teams go on the road and lose.
Yep. And I think this is a casualty for College of Idaho. This is a casualty of the league. That it's just so hard. My goodness, it's so hard. And the travel's difficult. I mean, it is a challenge to go to all these places and all these great settings and venues and pull out victories, man. It's hard. And this league it's been an absolute just juggernaut this year. And yeah, it's a shame that the team was in the Final Four last year, really a few plays away from making the national championship. They're done. And it's too bad. I think they're a great team. I think Andy Peters is still one of the best players in the NAIA, if not the best. And it's going to be sad to not give him the postseason, but it is the gauntlet that is the Frontier Conference, no doubt.
Yeah, and Peters did not play second half of last night's game. Assistant producer of the night award goes to Chris with this dropping. Glasper's rushing touchdown was a 91-yarder, heading towards that 213 yards. Number 2, Grandview, no problem really with William Penn. They do what Grandview does, 7 points, 21 points, 7-7. I tell you what, Coach Woodley is probably looking at this score and that defensive staff, and they're like, how do we give up 6 in the fourth quarter? How do we not shut those guys out? You know that they're just seething over the fact they gave up 6 points in this game.
Like we talked about.
And I'm serious too. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Because we talk about it. They have to have a record for shutouts. It's insane how many they get in a year.
Yeah. It's in the modern day NAIA, it's in the last 20 years, I don't even know who else you would compare them to, but I would guarantee Grandview has more shutouts in the last 20 years than anybody else in the NAIA. It's just simply how it is. Jackson Waring, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. They outgained William Penn 445-205. Dalton Van Pelt carrying it in the backfield, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game for Grandview. All right, let's get into the featured games, Pat. Wow, we had some good ones. This game right here, Benedictine and MidAmerica Nazarene. I would usually save the best for last, but we had that long lead up. I wanted to get right to this one. And we'll talk about Southern Oregon Carroll. We'll talk about all the other big ones. I mean, I got notes on notes on notes here, Pat. Benedictine, MidAmerica Nazarene. I think they play 10 times. They split 5-5. I mean, these two teams evenly matched. Great ball game to watch. Good mix of run and pass. 2 great quarterbacks, good running backs, great wide receivers. I mean, man, this one doesn't get any better than this.
It's my kind of game. I'm an offensive guy, and I love seeing the ball taken down the field. Like you said, the balance was there. Both quarterbacks were brilliant. And it was a ton of fun to watch. What a great football game. This is a game I wish, we could have like a big streaming service or something like that and have it, pushed out, nationally for people to see, because this was a fantastic game. I don't know if you want to get into how it ended.
But
we will. Goodness, crazy crazy finish. One of the craziest ones I've ever seen. I've been in the game for many, many years or around it. You don't see that very often, a kick return at the end after being down.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. You tell a story way better than me.
Oh, well, MidAmerica Nazarene, they go down, they score. They go up in this ball game. What would it be, 48-41 then.
Right.
They go down and they score. There's seconds left in the ball game. I can't remember the exact second mark.
I think it was less than 20, wasn't it, Jason? It was
Yeah, because, it was 15 seconds left.
Okay.
It was 15 seconds left. That's what it was. Kicked the ball off, short kick, fielded at the 25, and Benedictine just takes it down, and they score. 7 seconds left to go in the ball game. It's 48-47. They say, we're on the road. We're going to win this thing right now. And they go for two, and it ends up failing. Little rolling right. There was nothing there. Heavy pressure. Dooley kind of had to go back, and then just heaved it into the end zone, and it got knocked down. A valiant effort by Benedictine to try to come back and get this victory. It was a fantastic game. That's how it ended. And like you said, Pat, how many games do you know where you go down, you score 15 seconds, and it's the kick return they take back? Like two bombs. Yeah, quick passes. Somebody breaks something loose. Rarely is it a kick return, but field conditions in this one weren't great. It was a monsoon pretty much all day in Olathe, Kansas. They had rain up to the game. They had rain during the game. So, you had some field conditions in there too, and it leads to things maybe not playing out the way that you wanted them to.
Yeah, I want you to, thank you for telling the story. You did a great job, getting through kind of the details of it. When you get into the actual game, both of these teams throw the ball vertically down the field very, very well. And like you said, the balance in the running game, the quarterback play to me was top notch. I mean, they were
Mm-hmm.
accurate footballs. And then the defense is okay. Yeah, you see a high scoring game like that, but how many times the defenses make a play? A couple interceptions that were kind of a spectacular play on defense for some interceptions because the ball was in the air so much, obviously. But yeah, I mean, even the defenses had their moments. And again, high scoring game, but they had to defend the ball in the air a lot. And knowing the conditions with the rain and all that, that's even more impressive. These quarterbacks putting up 413 and 374. I mean, that's really, really remarkable.
Going through my notes on watching this, both MidAmerica Nazarene, as you mentioned, and Benedictine had interceptions going into the end zone.
Right.
So there you get 2 more touchdowns in this ball game very easily. Yeah.
Like
You also had there was probably the one play of the game where I want to talk to the Benedictine coaching staff and just say what happened. They ran a fake field goal, and everybody I think but the kicker knew that it was a fake field goal. I just want to know what was supposed to happen on that. What did we see? There wasn't a whole lot of ill that came from that. I thought the passing game, we talk so much about the passing numbers here. And when we'll compare this to the Northwestern Morningside game here in a bit, the difference between this game being a big scoring game, both of these teams were able to establish the run and make those defenses have to play up on the run, because Witherspoon, Cherry, and Finley made those linebackers have to commit up a little bit and allowed for those passes to get over the top a little bit more. Both teams did a fantastic job of establishing the run in this ball game to open up the pass.
No doubt. And you see a lot more one high safety looks because of the balance, because of the run game, which, lends itself to taking the ball vertically up the seams. And that was what, I saw quite a bit. But both those quarterbacks deliver the ball into, even pass defense looks vertically. No, I'm very, very impressed with both these teams. I think they're both playoff quality teams, Jason. We're going to get down to the break, get into the breakdown of how things can shake out in the playoffs. But I think both of these teams are worthy from just the eye test watching the teams.
100%. I think you just see a swap in the ratings here. I think you see MidAmerica Nazarene jump up, maybe Benedictine fall 1 or 2 spots. 2 more things on this, and then we'll move on. Gavin Kranz, the tight end for MidAmerica Nazarene. This was really my first game seeing what he did. Man, that kid, he had only 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He ran some phenomenal routes. And one of his routes on the touchdown going into the end zone, I was like, wow, he read it perfect. Got the linebacker kind of cheating over, turned it upfield, got caught right over the top. A real weapon for MidAmerica Nazarene. And then the only other
nod route. That's what that was, a little stick nod. Turns his head and goes vertical in behind. 1-on-1 on the mic. It was a great throw. Those teams attack coverage really well too, Jason. That's a perfect route versus cover 2. That's what that was, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a very good. I'm glad we see this is fun. We both were able to watch the game, check plays over again. Thank you, Huddle. It's awesome. And then the most peculiar play of the game, I want to know if MidAmerica Nazarene was trying to kick an onside kick, duck, whatever that thing was that checked up on Benedictine, and they were able to recover.
It looked like, so you can tell, I think it was like, we call it an S approach. So the kicker has to kind of go work in, then back out, right-footed kicker, to be able to put the ball into the right corner. And I think the intent was to drop it down about the 25, maybe 30-yard line. I know when I was coaching, we did that a lot. We had a kicker that was really good at that S approach where he kind of works inside out. Because then he's kicking it, because you got to open up a little bit to kick it to the right, shorter, about 25, 30-yard line. You want to drop it in there, and with conditions or wind, that can be really valuable, like straight into the wind, because that ball's gonna be kicking back towards the pursuit, the kickoff team. So I think that was a beautiful special teams call. I think that was intentional, Jason. Just looking at it. And again, I'm looking at it in the car, and I'm watching on Huddle, but it appeared it was intentional. That was a heck of a play. It was very strategic. I think placing that ball. We used to call it like sky right type deal. We're just going to drop it in and get the ball to kick back to you, again, hang it up in the wind, wherever it may be, get your kickoff team down there and a chance to steal a possession. They did.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful play, beautiful checkup. It all worked out good for MidAmerica Nazarene as they get the win. As a guy looking at national ratings, I don't look at Benedictine and go, oh, 7-2 now. They've lost to Grandview and MidAmerica Nazarene, who are both be top 10 teams. Benedictine will drop a spot or two. They're still a postseason qualifier. St. Thomas and Southeastern, this was, again, one of our featured games. This one was a game that Southeastern had the opportunity at home to potentially get the win, get an opportunity to maybe end up in that second spot in the conference, but St. Thomas, just a little bit too much for them, and I think this game comes down to offense. It comes down to St. Thomas's ability to establish the run with Rontavious Farmer. He did not get in the end zone, but he ran 29 times for 133 yards. That allowed Keely Watson to get over the top a couple times, to David Hayes and a few other ball players to get the ball deep. That's how St. Thomas ended up winning this. Southeastern is not a team that is built to come from behind and to have to match you score for score. Their offense is fine. It is not high-powered or anything like that, but I think we saw what we thought we would expect out of this game. St. Thomas gets the win. Southeastern played very good defense, played them very tough, but just wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, I think Southeastern is a year away, Jason. I think this is a great season for those guys to build confidence, continue to recruit hard in the great state of Florida from a talent standpoint, maybe get some transfers. But they're a few players away, I think. But I tell you what, they're on the rise. I think that program is going the right direction. And back to St. Thomas, those three guys, man, the quarterback, receiver, and running back are outstanding players. They really are. Like we talk about Farmer. Farmer's not a real flashy or big physical guy. He kind of does it all really well. He's a well-rounded back. Guy can do really everything. But, man, he is a workhorse for that team. Watson is efficient, knows the system inside and out. And Hayes is a heck of a ball player, and just very, very impressed with St. Thomas. I'm anxious to see how that's going to shake out. Probably a rematch down the road with Keiser. I think those are two great football teams, and I think Southeastern being the third now in the Sun Conference, still a quality football program, but like we talked about, probably not going to get 3 in.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. I do want to give one more quick shout out. Kendall Wilson with the 21-yard interception return. Beautiful read. Linebacker just right over the middle, just popped up, got it, and just beeline right to the end zone. I think that's his second pick six of the year. So a great play by Wilson there. Comment from a listener or viewer, whatever. I guess they're viewer. I'm an old radio guy, whatever. Southeastern shouldn't drop out of the top 25. 2 losses, top 5 teams. They're very good. Yeah, I agree. They should stay exactly where they are. They lost to number 1 and number 5. They're number 18. They should just stay there. They shouldn't drop. They shouldn't go up. They're positioned exactly where they should be in the ratings.
Couldn't agree more. It's just, talking about postseason, it's just unfortunate. You can't take 3, but I'm totally on board. They're a top 20 team. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, you start getting into those ARC ratings, and it's going to be tough for them to be rated high enough in the ARC to catch the selection committee, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Northwestern and Morningside, the old NAIA GPAC rivalry. This game was not much offense, which I know Pat didn't enjoy very much.
These are offensive teams.
Yeah.
The programs are great offense. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Hey, I got to tell you what, the defenses in this ball game, and I watched it live, and then I went back and watched it again on Huddle. Same thing from Morningside this week. Lots of pressure from that front seven, getting in Northwestern's backfield, causing all sorts of havoc. Northwestern does the same thing to Morningside. They get in the backfield. They put a lot of pressure on Chevalier. Chevalier maybe doesn't take as many sacks or as many hits in the backfield or gets as much pressure maybe as Hayden Gross did in this ball game. But I feel like Chevalier was forced into maybe doing some things he didn't want to do. He missed some passes. He threw a couple interceptions in this ball game. And I think ultimately that's what helped to keep this score low. And going back to what I was talking about with MidAmerica, Nazarene, and Benedictine, one of the reasons why that game saw so many points, both teams established the run very well, even though Max Huff had 94 yards in this ball game. A lot of that, came in a couple big plays here and there. Neither team could really get the run established, I think, the way they wanted to for it to help their passing game. And Morningside maybe could make a little argument to that. They ran the ball better than Northwestern, but if Northwestern would have been able to get that run game established at all against Morningside, we may have seen a different game. But 2 weeks in a row, they've played teams that have had pretty good running games, Dordt and Northwestern, and neither of those teams have been able to run on them. So that should probably tell you something about Morningside's defense.
Yeah, I think they're physical. Just watching how you have Connor McQuillan, who's one of the better running backs in the NAIA, 19 yards, 11 carries. I mean, again, I think they just kind of abandoned it after a while, but that's stifling. And like you said, they defend the run game exceptionally well, and they run well and they're physical. So it's kind of a different approach for Morningside, this playoff run to kind of lean on the defense a little bit more than their offense. It's not what they've done for their 3 national championships. So it's going to be a little different approach, but don't ask how.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's how many. Jacob Nelson, a real nice touchdown catch in the end zone over a defender for Morningside in the first half of this one. That helped him get up 10-0. Northwestern able to get into the end zone, in the second half with the Peyton Carroll touchdown reception. Carroll, not a guy that's been a big receiver the last couple years for Northwestern. He had himself a really good game, 7 catches, 82 yards. Hayden Gross, he's a young quarterback. You can tell by watching this game, he's young, he's unsure of himself, and maybe doesn't make some of those passes that a veteran quarterback does. But a great game in the GPAC. Morningside proving that they're the top team in the GPAC. They're the ones that people are going to have to, beat coming out of this. And Northwestern, I was impressed with their fight. I was impressed with the way that they handled themselves in this game. They just weren't as good as Morningside, as simply put. And good comment here from Dale. Morningside's offense gets a lot of the press, but the defense, very legit second half of the year. You can't argue with that one there. So. Hey, the GPAC, for all intents and purposes, looks wrapped up by Morningside. They still got a couple games to play, but this part is wrapped up. But Northwestern will be fighting for their playoff life this week when we talk about our featured games. We move on. Another Frontier Conference game being featured by us because it was one of the best games in NAIA football this week. And if you could have drawn up anything and everything that could have gone wrong in the first quarter for Carroll College, it did. And Southern Oregon capitalized and got out to that 17-0 lead in this one, Pat. You watched it. Mm-hmm. What were your takeaways in this one?
Carroll just kind of hung in there. And I thought played very efficiently in the second half. Their run defense really stepped up in the second half. I think Carroll's team speed on defense is pretty strong. They have a unique system to do a lot. Like the stack defense, the 3-3. They move their third level around a lot and do a lot of different coverage variations, which I think presented some issues for Southern Oregon. And I'd tell you what, I think the box, the linebackers, the defensive line do a great job defending the run. I think looking at Yates, Yates is a workhorse for the Raiders, and he was quiet in the second half, and that really put Ashuto now had to make some throws on 3rd and longs and got the ball back for Carroll. And Carroll just kind of grinded. It wasn't like a lot of big plays in the passing. They took a couple shots and a little play action play for a touchdown, but it was a lot of balanced run game, bootlegs, Some third down throws that were really efficient. But yeah, it was a good football game. I think Carroll's really well coached on both sides of the ball. And is it Perka? Is that how you say it? Pronounce the name Perka?
Perka, yep.
Yeah, you can tell he knows the system really well. He's not Andy Peters. He's not that physically gifted player, but you can see he really knows the system well and knows where the ball needs to go. Not a flashy player, but he certainly executes well enough for the Saints to win. But you're seeing some confidence. You're seeing the excitement in Helena again, which is really cool to see for guys like us that have been around, have known of that program like we do. There's something cooking there again, and that's a big time win.
Yeah.
And again, the home environment, there's not a better place in the NAIA for a home football game than Nelson Stadium in Helena. And you can see it again. It's buzzing again up there. And it's scary because they're an undefeated team right now in the conference.
Yep.
And they're getting it done. And Southern Oregon's a great team, Jason. We talked about it. I mean, this is nothing on them. A little sloppy maybe in the second half. Just weren't executing, weren't clicking on all cylinders in the second half especially. But if they're at home, this probably goes their way. It's just one of those things. I think the travel is significant enough, and these home environments for the home teams are advantages. I believe that. I think you're seeing that because there's only one, I think, of these big marquee matchups the road team has won, I believe. Correct, Jason?
Yeah, Carroll at College of Idaho.
Yeah, right. Last week. That was it. The home teams are winning these games. So it's very interesting.
You could probably count the season opener for Carroll when Montana Tech went there and won, but not a conference game technically. Right. So I'll kind of keep that one to the side. All right, so quick recap for anybody wondering what we're talking about, where everything went wrong for Carroll in the first quarter. Opening kickoff, fumbled, recovered on the 23 by Southern Oregon. Southern Oregon had a shot in the end zone. It was dropped to go into the ground, and then they missed the field goal. That missed opportunity actually comes back to bite them in this game as they end up losing by one score. Perka then on the next drive gets sacked on the 19, fumbled. Southern Oregon recovers. Yates takes a direct snap in for a touchdown. They go up 7-0. And then the punter on 4th and 10 drops the ball with 8:30 left in the first. Southern Oregon takes over. They get a field goal out of that turnover. They go up 10-0. Then an interception on the Southern Oregon 39-yard line. SOU ends up punting on that one. The fifth drive of the ball game for Carroll College, they ended up punting it to the 35. It was a very short field for Southern Oregon. Yates catches a screen pass for a touchdown. It's 17-0 with 7:23 left to play in the second quarter of this ball game. And then with 3:41 left in the first half, Perka gets out of the pocket, able to find a guy in the end zone. They end up getting the touchdown there to make it 17-7. But very early on in this game, it was looked like it was going to be all Southern Oregon. But you got to credit the Carroll College Fighting Saints weathering the storm and just doing like it. It looked a little bit like old school Saints championship football. Like, hey, we're not going to panic. We're just going to do what we do. We're going to slowly, methodically come back. And by the way, we trust these guys on defense just to shut this other team down. And Southern Oregon couldn't do anything running the football in the second half. They moved the ball a little bit, but not enough, obviously, to make a difference in this one.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I think Carroll College's defense, especially the run defense, I think was certainly key. From the end of the second quarter on, they were tremendous. And yeah, like you said, Carroll was methodical. They're down a score or two, still run the football. Still trying to get 3 or 4 here. Making third down manageable, which they did plenty. They took a very methodical approach offensively and just had to out execute, and they did. And that's how they won the game. Just kind of worked through things and didn't turn the ball over, in the second half. And that's certainly what caused a lot of the issues early. And I think they're the deserving winner in this game. And what a great environment there in Helena again.
Yeah, it was absolutely a great one, and looking forward to it. We'll talk about postseason, playoffs, all that stuff. I've had some Carroll fans chirping me. this weekend about the ratings and where they're at and the disrespect for it. We'll talk about that momentarily. We want to get through everything that happened in the NAIA top 25 as we've made it through our featured games. You know, the top 5, we've talked about all these games except Montana Western. They get a 56-14 win over MSU Northern. They will match up against Carroll this next week. Guess what? That's going to be one of our featured games, obviously. The 6 through 10 spots, we talked about all of these except for Dort getting over Briar Cliff 55-7. Fairly easy win for the defenders in the GPAC there. Spots 11 through 15, Texas Wesleyan gets the big win over Texas College. And then Montana Tech takes a road business trip down to Arizona Christian. They get that win 56-24, doing everything they need to do there. Baker gets the win over Clark 37-17, spots 16 through 20. Dickinson State defeats Jamestown 35-30. That means that they win the North Star Athletic Association League title, and they have automatically qualified for the NAIA postseason. And then Ottawa over Langston in the Sooner Athletic Conference there to continue on their winning ways in the spots 21 through 25. Cumberland loses to Lindsey Wilson. They're going to drop out of that top 25. College of Idaho loses to Eastern Oregon. They'll drop out of the top 25. And then Bethel's lost to Campbellsville. They're going to end up dropping out of the coaches' top 25. So we talked about it, Pat. We're probably going to see Campbellsville jump back up in there. I think Concordia is going to jump back up in there. And it's escaping me. Who was our third one that we were
St.
just
Francis,
talking?
Indiana.
Oh, yeah, St. Francis, Indiana. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I think those 3 teams
Oh,
you'll
great.
see enter the coaches' top 25. Whether it's who's 23, who's 25, it doesn't matter. Though I think you're going to see those 3 teams pop in this week, and all deservedly so with their victories and how they've played the season. Anything else out of the top 25? I kind of skimmed over that quick, Pat, because we've had a lot that we've talked about in this show, and I feel like we barely touched the surface 42 minutes in.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, certainly. And I think, obviously, with huge games once again in the Frontier, in the heart of America, we're going to get some big games. There's a big game in the Mid-States West. Again, can St. X be a spoiler to St. Francis? So there's a lot going on still. And anxious to talk more about the matchups.
So potential automatic postseason qualifiers. For those of you that maybe are new to this or haven't been following along or just kind of forgot since last year and you're not a nerd like me that reads through the NAIA Championship Series manual, there are 13 postseason automatic qualifiers. They are the conference champions. Here's how those conference championship runs look in each one of those conferences. Now, Pikeville, Point, and Reinhardt, all in the Appalachian, have a chance to potentially win the conference. Right now, Carroll College is sitting by themselves in the Frontier Conference, but a win by Montana Western this week over Carroll College would give that tiebreaker then to Montana Western, with both of them having one loss in the conference. Morningside is undefeated in the GPAC. Grandview and Graceland in the Heart North, both are undefeated and setting up for a battle here in a couple weeks for what could be Graceland's shot at making the NAIA postseason. Heart South, MidAmerica Nazarene sitting all alone there. McPherson sitting all alone in the Kessinger, and Kansas Wesleyan sitting all alone in the KCAC. In the Mid-South, it's Georgetown undefeated. Indiana Wesleyan's undefeated in the Mid-States Mid-East. In the Midwest, St. Francis, Indiana is undefeated in the conference standings. Dickinson State is the only team on this list of all these conferences that is guaranteed in the postseason. Now, Keiser's undefeated. Keiser would have to lose out and something crazy would have to happen for them not to be the automatic in the Sun, but technically they need to win another game to have the outright title. And Texas Wesleyan leading things in the Sooner Athletic Conference. So this kind of gives us a chance, Pat, maybe to look through, some of those conference standings. The AAC, as we talked about, Pikeville was on top of this one, undefeated. And then they lose this week to Point. So this is how the standings currently look in the AAC. Pikeville was in the driver's seat, but we've got a 3-way tie. Now, the 3-way tie is basically decided by the team that is highest ranked in the coaches' top 25, which there isn't going to be one. Then it goes to the ARC rating. So that last ARC rating will ultimately decide who goes to the NAIA Championship Series postseason if these teams remain in a three-way tie. Now there's a chance Point or Reinhardt or Pikeville could lose. Then it goes to a two-way tie, and the two-way tie is then decided by head-to-head play. Four-way tie, I think it's consecutive sack races played on Sundays. I don't know. It's a basketball reference for anybody that missed it.
It's a good one. Yeah, this is all teams with, I guess Reinhardt's 5-4. I mean, it's a weird one, no doubt. And like you said, Pikeville had every opportunity to stake their claim and basically end things like yesterday. And yeah, that didn't happen. So things are definitely going to get interesting. Now, what's the remaining schedule for those, Jason? Those teams?
It's a great question. I would need to look it up. Pikeville only has one game left against St. Andrews.
And Reinhardt Point's already played, correct?
Yep, and Reinhardt beat Point.
Right.
I think both of them play Union still. Well, I'm pretty sure the AAC website allows me just to do this. So that's what you got for Reinhardt. They've got Union in Bluefield. And Point has got Point has got Union in Bluefield.
Point, yeah.
Yep. Reinhardt has got Kentucky Christian and Union. So
that puts you on the spot and you're ready to roll, baby. Great job.
I try. Let's move on here to the Frontier Conference. Now, we talked about how things were sitting in that league. Yes, Carroll is the conference champ. If it all ended today, that game against Montana Western, if Carroll College wins that game, then Carroll College has got a claim for the Frontier Conference title and the automatic there. If Montana Western wins it, then they've got the head-to-head. Now, of course, these teams have got to win out then after that in order for this to continue on the way. But those are the two teams in the driver's seat. Montana Tech and Southern Oregon both have got to keep winning to be fighting for an at-large spot, or maybe an outside shot at that conference title. Now, Eastern Oregon is in there too at 4-2. I believe Eastern Oregon, for them to have a shot at the conference title, they need Carroll College to go 0-2 the next 2 weeks, because Eastern Oregon has a loss to Carroll College, and then Carroll and them could technically, I think, tie for the conference title. I don't know. There's a whole tiebreaker scenario I'm not going to worry about yet there. But again, we've talked about College of Idaho so much this year. They're 4-3 in the conference. They are barbecued in terms of having a shot to win the Frontier. It's all these top ones here with 2 weeks left in the season.
Carroll has Montana Western this week and Montana Tech for the final game, for the conference game. Correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Then Western's Carroll, and I'm not sure their last game is against, but gonna be interesting.
Let's see.
What is technology?
Eastern Oregon.
Okay.
We got Eastern Oregon the last week of the year.
Yeah. Some great matchups the final 2 weeks of the season.
We go on to the GPAC. We don't have to spend much time here because Morningside is sitting, at the top of the standings. They've beat Dordt, they've beat Concordia, they've beat Northwestern. They hold the tiebreakers over all of those. I don't see Morningside losing another game this year. I see them winning out in the conference. The real battle is going to be in the ARC ratings between these three here. I think if Dordt wins this weekend in the ARC rating, they'll stay where they're at. Then it becomes interesting with where Concordia and Northwestern are in the ARC. So in that ARC 3, I think it is, Concordia was 8th, but I foresee them moving up to 5th, possibly 4th, because of their win over Northwestern and the fact they keep winning out. So it could get very interesting, those final ARC ratings there. And Concordia might be raising their hand with an argument saying, hi, I know everybody's talking about Northwestern should be in the postseason, but we beat them and they lost to the other top 3 teams in the conference and us. So that part could get really interesting in the Great Plains Athletic
And only
Conference.
2 you think will get in, Jason? Only 2?
I think there's a guaranteed 2. I think there's going to be 2. So the winner this weekend, I think, between Northwestern and Dordt, which is a featured game that we'll talk about here in a little bit, I think just in terms of ratings and resume, they will get in. But if Dordt beats Northwestern, that allows Concordia really to raise their hand and say, hey, we only lost to Dordt and Morningside. And then Concordia, I think, getting into the rating this week will help to further that argument. Into the Heart North, Graceland and Grandview, both sitting undefeated and at the top of this conference. And Peru State right there, trying to stake their claim, but unfortunately, you got that one loss sitting in there, and that's not going to be good for them. They lost to Graceland already. They've got Grandview coming up this weekend. And if Grandview gets that win over Peru State, which I kind of expect they will, then it's going to set up for a Grandview Graceland battle the last week of the year in this conference.
Yeah, 2 huge weeks for this conference. Peru, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, had a rough year last year, did they not? I think it was a losing record, wasn't it?
I think they were, I got to look. I think they're just above 500 or.
Yeah, but what a great turnaround for them. And, that's a team that's been around forever in the NAIA as well. And, good to see that there's another program on the rise, in the heart of America, or heart, excuse me. I can't call it the heart of America. Heart.
I'm just going to say, Pat, I mean, somebody picked them preseason third.
You did? Not a big deal or anything. Yeah.
I'm
just saying.
I was wrong on a whole bunch of other ones, but
yeah,
I can point to that one like, see, I knew one thing.
Yeah. There's that's a have and have not conference, though, it seems like, especially that North.
Yeah, I'll be interested. We'll break it down in a couple weeks. That Graceland Grandview game's big, but honestly, Peru State Grandview is huge this weekend. You don't think Peru State's going to be fighting for everything in that game? I mean,
no question.
Heart South looks like this. MidAmerica Nazarene in control. You got Baker and Benedictine both sitting right there. Benedictine's loss, obviously, to MidAmerica Nazarene. Baker's loss was to Benedictine. Baker and MidAmerica Nazarene still have to play. Not this week, though. Or is it this week? No, not this week. Yes, this week. I'll have to look here in a second. I'm second guess myself. Yes, it is this week. It is this week. There's been a lot of information in this podcast, Pat.
You're working your butt off, man.
All right. We keep going in the conferences. KCAC, as we talked about, McPherson leading this one over Evangel. McPherson wins out. They're going to win this conference. Bissell Division looks like this. Kansas Wesleyan with the lead now under an interim coaching staff, an interim head coach right now. Turns things around in the Bissell Division to currently be sitting undefeated. And if they win out, they're in. If they lose, man, I don't even want to think about tiebreakers in this half of the conference, man. My brain will explode. Mid-South Conference, yeah. Well, I'm not even we're just going to say K-Dub's going to win out and they're going to make everything easy for everyone. If they don't, then I'll break it down on this show. Georgetown leading things right now in the Mid-South Conference, but they get Campbellsville, the Fighting Tigers, this week, and that could throw a monkey wrench into some plans in the Mid-South Conference if the Fighting Tigers can upset the top team right now in the Mid-South Conference.
The Fighting Tigers are going to come in swinging, baby.
That's right. That's why they're the Fighting Tigers and just not the Tigers. St. Francis, Indiana, leading the Midwest Division, the Mid-States Football Association. They're up over Marion and St. Francis, who they've got wins over right now. They still have St. Xavier to play and Olivet.
Yep, those two. So not easy. Not easy.
No.
Rivalry games, St. X and St. Francis, long history of great football games, and it's going to be a good one in Fort Wayne this Saturday.
The other division of the Mid-States Football Association, Indiana Wesleyan in charge, 3-0. But this is where I'm talking about. They technically have not clinched the conference. They could, if they lose, there's going to be a three-way tie. They'll have the tiebreaker over these teams. But technically, Indiana Wesleyan has not clinched the conference in this one. But I foresee the Wildcats coming away in that. Dickinson State, North Star Athletic Association, 6-0. They will be a representative of the league in the NAIA Championship Series. Sooner Athletic Conference looks like this. Texas Wesleyan, currently undefeated. They beat Ottawa, Arizona earlier this year. That's Ottawa's one loss. So if Texas Wesleyan wins out, they're just fine. If they lose, they're going to have the tiebreaker then over Ottawa, Arizona in the head-to-head. If it goes to a three-way tie like last year, then things get super crazy. I don't foresee it going to a three-way tie. I don't foresee Texas Wesleyan losing. I see them getting the automatic. And then same thing in the Sun Conference. You've got Keiser undefeated, a couple one-loss teams behind them in Florida Memorial and St. Thomas. So Keiser has not clinched yet, but they're on the verge as they move forward here in the Sun Conference. So that's kind of a look at those conference ratings, Pat. So now we could talk about the featured games and why they're featured this week Dorton Northwestern, we've discussed a lot as to why it is. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it, man?
Absolutely. This is going to be very interesting. I think Dort, the way they're playing right now, I'm picking them right now in this game.
Mm-hmm.
It's strong defense. They the unique offense. It's a challenge, there's no doubt. And I like the way they're playing right now. And Northwestern's got to figure some things out. And the big thing is it's a quarterback system. It's a quarterback-driven system. Obviously, with the success they've had, and they've got a young player there who's still going through some growing pains. But this is for all the marbles, really, when it comes to that second spot. That second spot in the playoffs for the GPAC.
Now, I will say we've got more games we're going to get to here in a little bit in the old keep your eye on segment. And I am a believer. You can only say there's 3 or 4 featured games. You have to make some decisions. So I made some decisions on behalf of Pat in the Victory Sports Network today. Well, I own the thing, so I can. But these are the 3 that I picked. Baker then at MidAmerica Nazarene. Hey, MidAmerica Nazarene, they're having a good year. 12-game winning streak for MidAmerica Nazarene dating back to last season when they got things going. So MNU, this is not just a, oh, hey, they're this cute little upstart. Man, they've been winning. They were just barely left out of the NAIA postseason last year. And hey, here we go. A chance to prove themselves in back-to-back weeks after spending most of the season not really playing teams that people would say were top 25 caliber, with maybe the exception of Graceland, a game that they won.
Yeah, the big thing for them is getting, that's an emotional win yesterday. And that was a great football game, the best game of the day in the NAIA. They got to, get right back to it and play a strong Baker team. I think I'm with you. I think Mid-American is a tremendous offensive football team and play timely defense. They make plays, but I think this offense is exceptional in a playoff level team because of that offense. So it's going to be interesting again. There's no doubt. I mean, this is at Mid-American, which is great.
Yep.
Good for them. But it's going to be a battle.
Absolutely. Carroll College continuing their prove it attitude week over week. They beat College of Idaho. They beat Southern Oregon. I think this is the biggest test that they have seen and will see over this 4-week period. And that's nothing against having, because then they got to go to Montana Tech and play next week. Right. But this game right here, going on the road to Western, I think is the true test of, is Carroll for real? Are they a postseason team, conference champion, or were they a benefit of having that middle schedule that maybe wasn't good? I did a quick math thing on this, Pat, because I had some Carroll fans kind of chirping at me in my DMs, at me on the old X, and saying the ratings are a joke, the coaches are a joke. How do they only rate Carroll College 21 this week? That's a joke. I'll tell you how. You lost to Montana Tech to start the year. You were already unrated and you didn't make the postseason last year. So you've got to kind of get things up. After you lost to Montana Tech, the teams you played up until you played College of Idaho, which was the win that got you in the top 25, those teams that you played between Montana Tech and College of Idaho were a combined 7-26. They're 7-26, and that includes a 5-4 Eastern Oregon. If you throw Eastern Oregon out of that, 2-22. Mm-hmm. So the teams that you beat during that period, nothing against Simpson, nothing against MSU Northern, nothing against Rocky Mountain. They're 0-1 win teams. So as you build a resume for the Raiders and the coaches to look at, you can't point and say, look at us. We're 5-1. Who'd you beat? Simpson by 70? Woo! Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get in the top 25, and I'm not saying that to disparage what Carroll has done this year, because they are a great football team. I love the way they're playing football. I love the way that defense is going, but you're rated where you're at now because of that. They're going to move from this was the rating last week, number 21. They're going to move, Pat, I think from 21 to 14 or 15, probably. Mm-hmm. Southern Oregon will drop from 8 probably down to a spot or 2 behind them. You might even see Carroll get up. I know where they're going to go in my poll, and I had them a little higher. I had them at 19, because I know more. No, kidding. I'm just being egotistical now, Pat. But I could see Carroll moving from 21 up to as high as 12 this week. 13, 14, I think 15 is more where the coaches will land them. If they beat Montana Western, they'll go from 15 up into the top 10. It's that simple. So it doesn't matter where you're rated in week 6. It only matters where you're rated at the end of the year in that final coach's rating.
Yeah.
Sorry, my diatribe. What do you think of this game?
Before we get into the breakdown, this is funny to me because you're like the favorite son of the Saints. You're like an adopted son for the folks in Helena because, I mean, no one has covered the Carroll Fighting Saints from, year 2004 through their entire dynasty more than Jason Dannelly. I mean, you literally almost did you have residence in
every
Helena?
year, the Holiday Inn downtown.
You live there. You just set up shop and live there. I mean, heck, you're going moose hunting. You're going elk hunting with the locals.
St. Francis fans would have you believe that during that time.
I know.
Because I was very much like St. Francis fans took a long time to warm up to me because, you just love Carroll. You just all you talk about is Carroll from Jason. Don't care anything about St. Francis. Like,
I wasn't that way because we were friends.
You weren't. Yeah, this is true.
And you had to cover them. They were unbelievable and the greatest dynasties in all of sports. I mean, my goodness, 6 national championships in 10 years?
Yeah.
And then they played in the other ones. Like it was, I mean, it was this unbelievable run and you had to cover them. And there's not a better place in that time frame in the NAIA.
Yeah.
Then you have the Galen DeBoer teams kind of come back and challenge them. So you are a favorite son of the folks in Helena. So this little argument, this little Twitter battle is interesting to me because you're one of them, man. Like you're in Dana College, you have a diploma on your wall. But my goodness, man, like you're like supposed to a Carroll, I don't know. I guess what do you get, like the honorary diplomas or something like that? You're like an honorary alumni.
I tell you what, I think I've been yelled at, even though I'm supposedly the favorite son of Carroll. I've been yelled at. I'm more of the bastard son, I think, of Carroll because I've been yelled at more by their fans and former coaches. I have a great story about Putter Petrino giving me the business at a Hall of Fame banquet at Carroll College. And I'm just like, dude, in 1984, when your team got shafted from the postseason, I was 4.
Right.
I didn't know what Carroll College was. I would like dairy cows and tractors. Right. I didn't know.
Right. Hey, this is going to be a good game, though.
It is. Sorry.
It's going to be in Dillon, which is, we know the home team's got a distinct advantage in this league, and they just do. I'm anxious to see whether Montana Western has developed more of a balanced offensive attack with the run game, which I think is huge. With that being said, Carroll's run defense, I think arguably is the best in the frontier of what I've seen. Pretty darn good. This is going to be a heck of a ball game. And like you said, Carroll College, okay, you want to be relevant, you want to win the league, you want to get in the playoffs. How good are we? Here's your chance. Again, you won a huge game at home yesterday. Just well done. The resiliency in the second half, coming back and getting it done. Well, guess what? Now it's a real challenge on the road against the top team in the conference right now. Go get it done. It's going to be a heck of a battle. It's going to be a great football game. This one's going to be must-see watch. No question.
I want to see how Carroll performs on the road. I've come up with a theory, and I believe for the Frontier Conference to get over the hump nationally, and I'm not going to make many friends saying that, but for them to get over the hump nationally, the best teams in their league have got to start winning on the road. And Carroll has proven that this year. They have to prove it again this week, and they have to prove it again next week. And if they do, I will be beating this table saying this is a team that could win the national championship.
Sure.
Because you can't just sit back and win these home games and then lose on the road and say, well, it's a tough league. It's a really tough league. Well, yeah, it is. But great teams in great leagues go out and win on the road. And that's what Carroll College is going to be challenged to do this week against a Montana Western team, which has one of the best offenses in the NAIA. The Palandri kid, probably player of the year candidate. The Humphreys kid at running back has really come along, played very well running the football. A trio of wide receivers that can get deep and a defense that can put pressure on you. They've got a great defense as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing, is this going to be a juggernaut slugfest, 20-17, 17-14 game, or are these offenses going to kind of open things up a bit, and we're going to see 35-31. I'm going to lean towards defensive battle, turnovers, special teams winning it, but it could go the other way just as easily, Pat.
Question is the weather conditions, too.
I haven't looked at what it's going to be.
We're getting into November, baby, up in that world. I mean, you're getting, you get a blizzard. Hopefully not. I'd love to see these offenses with, good surfaces and good weather to see them, really do battle, properly in proper conditions. I'd like to see that personally, but again, it's Montana. I'm thinking about how this setting is going to be. Maybe the biggest game, obviously the biggest game with the new stadium. For Montana Western, one of the biggest games they've hosted in a couple of years. Like the College of Idaho game last year was kind of comparable maybe to this, but this is really for all the marbles, really, when you get down to it. It's a big one. Can't wait to see this one. This is going to be must-see TV for sure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to streaming. Must-see stream.
There you go.
MSS. Must-see stream.
There you go.
Let's check your 10-day forecast for Dillon, Montana, ladies and gentlemen. So throughout the week, mostly cloudy and partly cloudy conditions. Moving into the weekend, sunny and a high of 49 on Friday.
Perfect.
Saturday high of 49, sunny conditions, awesome. Low 28. Perfect.
Great. Fantastic.
Traffic and weather together on the 6s, Pat.
Jason Dannelly coming at you.
Yeah, all right. I'm out of my radio thing here now. Yeah. All right, moving on to the rest of the games to keep your eye on. We already mentioned it. Grandview going to Peru State. Peru State's going to be fighting like a dog in that one to try to get that victory over Grandview and really shake things up in the Heart North. You've got Eastern Oregon coming off of a upset home win. I think I would call it an upset of College of Idaho, and Southern Oregon making sure they keep their season on track in that one. You've got Langston going to Texas Wesleyan, hoping to get the upset and kind of upset the entire Sooner Athletic Conference. Georgetown going to Campbellsville. You've got Southwestern, a one-loss team, going to Evangel, who's coming off of a loss, and then Olivet Nazarene at St. Francis, Illinois this week. Heck of a run of games for the ones to keep your eye on. Pat, what's jumping out to you?
Georgetown, Campbellsville, baby. I want to see it. Can the Fighting Tigers get it done? Georgetown Tigers, Fighting Tigers of Campbellsville. Can the Fighting Tigers pull off the upset? I'd love to know the last time that Campbellsville beat Georgetown. That's been a few years. I can't think of the last time. Been a long, long time.
Yeah.
I don't think Campbellsville ever beat my dad's teams in the 90s or Bill Cronin's teams in the 2000s ever. So it's been some time. But I'm telling you what, Jason, this team, they're going to be coming swinging, baby. They are going to be giving everything. You mentioned Peru. I think Campbellsville's going to be the same type of deal. They're going to come out in everything that they have. You're going to see gadgets. You're going to see just tons and tons of passion and effort in this game. And I tell you what, man, they can do it. I really believe that. They're a fun team. Obviously, I've been on the bandwagon for a while. I love watching them. I'm looking forward to this one.
2014, Campbellsville knocks off Georgetown 28-24. That was the last time the Tigers beat the Tigers.
A decade-long drought. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a good game. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. That is one of the featured ones. I think the one standing out for me is Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon, Pat. I think Eastern Oregon, big emotional win, maybe a little glimmer of hope now, postseason, conference title, all sorts of things. Hey, we got to win. We got to take care of business. We have to beat Southern Oregon. Southern Oregon, maybe going back home. I don't want to say feeling sorry for themselves. I don't think they're going to feel sorry for themselves. But, man, the other thing we didn't talk about enough in that football game was the physicalness between Southern Oregon and Carroll. Those guys got beat around. SOU is going to be physically damaged going into next week and just kind of making themselves feel a little bit better after playing a physical game. I think you got to really keep your eye on that one. Something crazy could happen out there in Oregon. I'd like to say like big rivalry game between Eastern and Southern Oregon. It is, but I don't think it's as big as a rivalry as what people think it is when you've got two Oregon teams matching up. Because for many, many years, the two didn't play one another. Like Eastern Oregon was kind of Division III. Southern Oregon was NAIA. Southern was independent. Eastern was kind of in a different league, and so they didn't really cross over a lot. But it's been renewed, and it is definitely a rivalry. So that's what I would say on those games for the ones to keep your eye on. A reminder, Wednesday, special NAIA postseason show. I'm going to be talking with Jesse Gotting about the NAIA Championship Series selection process. See the selection criteria, analysis, everything that goes into being selected to the postseason pool. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Join us Wednesday night to see
Tuesday.
that.
Wednesday.
Yeah, not Tuesday. I thought about Tuesday, but apparently somebody's getting elected on Tuesday. And I don't want my chat feed to get filled up with that. Man, I am tired of watching television right now.
I do love election day though. Ever since I was
yes,
I'm a history guy. I love political science. I love the chaos it is election day. It's a lot of fun for me. I've watched election results since I was like 10 years old.
Same.
Yeah, I love it.
Same.
I really enjoy it. So yeah, I look forward to that.
Watching the map fill up and everything. We'll talk more about that.
Awesome.
Man, we got a bunch of questions to get to here. Let's see. Let me get the overtime off there. Just get us up full screen. Let's go to, and we'll get to your questions here momentarily. Might have missed it. Odds of the Frontier getting 4 into the playoffs. It's gonna be tough. I'm not saying it's impossible. Will they get 3 in? I think there's a 100% chance they get 3 in.
And should.
I think there's a less than 50% chance they get 4 in.
Great questions for Wednesday night.
Yes. There you go.
Set
Great
that
questions for
Absolutely.
Wednesday night. Hey, there you go. And it'll be an even better question after this week. Going into the final weekend, I can give a little bit more of a, hey, here's how it's going.
Right.
Let's see what else we got. I'm kind of looking at this is tough also, Jordan. Final 2 at-large spots, Frontier, HOA South 3rd team, GPAC 3rd team, OUAZ doubtful. Too tough to tell. I will do an analysis this week of who I think is going to make it to the postseason based off of results and how I expect things to go the next 2 weeks. But I have not dug into the at-larges. I wish there was an updated ARC rating now to go with, because the one thing you'll hear Wednesday night when we talk to Dr. Jesse Gotting, and for those of you that just, spill the beans here, I talked to Dr. Gotting on Wednesday of this last week and recorded it. We're not going through and breaking down who he thinks is going to make it. We're talking about the process, and I learned a lot about that process. And the one thing, if there's anything you can take away from me right now and how the NAIA postseason is going to work, is the ARC rating. The ARC rating is here in the selection process, and the NAIA coaches top 25 is down here. They're going to look at that ARC rating and where people are first. They're going to look at their matchups. They're going to look at who's won top 25 games, who's won top 10 games. They're going to look at all of that first before they consider the NAIA coaches top 25. So understand that it's not just as easy as, oh, hey, we're 16th in the coaches poll. How could we get overlooked? Well, because of where you were in the ARC rating and all of those other things. If you don't have any wins against top 25 opponents, it's going to be tough for you to be considered.
I have a question for you on the ARC rating, Jason. Do the Raiders evaluate film? Or is it purely on the analytics, the statistics, and records matchups?
So in talking with Dr. Gotting, and he'll explain this a little bit, there is film that gets watched by the ARC raters. Most of the ARC is all in kind of one area. They're not getting film exchange, kind of like, they're not getting maybe at the level that we are now, Pat. But it has been told to me, like, yeah, they are watching film. They are watching games late. They are, trying to check out as many games in their ARC as possible. Outside of that ARC, it's a lot tougher. And honestly, I've talked to a couple ARC raters that say, Jason, we watch you and Pat on Sundays because, we take it with a grain of salt, but it's another source to get that information. What we got for a question here? Honest question coming from Michael. Why does Dort get all of this love in the polls? What I mean is this group and another NAIA media group ranked them, and they've never make it to the playoffs or out of the first round. Well, they made it out of the first round last year, and they turned the corner last year. That's what it was. They turned the corner, and then if you look at Northwestern's run to the NAIA National Championship last year, nobody challenged Northwestern last year as much as what Dort did, and they returned a bunch of players this year on offense and defense. That's why they're getting the love, and they should. They've beat everybody that they are supposed to beat. They didn't beat Morningside, but I picked Morningside to win the conference, and we'll learn more this weekend if they should continue to get that love, I think. If they go out and they beat Northwestern, they should continue to get that love. If they lose to Northwestern, then you kind of start saying, all right, maybe were they rated a little too high? But I think the overall respect for the GPAC gets them there, and I think a lot of Raiders go, well, second best team in the GPAC, so they're going to be top 15, top 10.
4 national championships in the last 7-8 years, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty significant.
100%. Brandon, USF Cougs going to get a little respect now. Yep, they'll be in the top 25. Right now, Hinchman, I respect Hinchman. He does some research. Right now, at larges, he says 3 Frontier, 2 Sun, 1 Hack, 1 GPAC. I think the 3 I'm just telling you, 3 at larges out of the Frontier, while I think deserved, I think they are those teams. It's gonna be tough because of the arc. And we got to wait for that final arc rating before I'll really say yes. I would like to see it, but my predictions are just like Hinchman or Brandon or Michael's predictions. Like, we're just guys throwing things at a wall here. Let's see. What else we got? Wait, D2 seeds with super regions. This is the way D2 seeds with super regions is trash. Hope that's not the way the NAIA arcs. It's not. It's a selection process. It's not like a super regional thing. What's another question? Yep, it is regional. I mean, that's the only way you can do it.
No question.
We could talk till we're blue in the face about it, but the NAIA, we do not have the money to fly teams all over the place. What's Breyer saying here? With a Western win, Carroll loss, does Western win Frontier Conference outright with the win the following? I don't think it's technically not outright because they have a loss and Carroll has a loss, but they win the tiebreaker for the conference title, so they get the automatic is how that goes. Oh man, a lot of questions. I like it.
Yeah, very good.
All right, let's talk position groups. Who do you have as the best O-line, D-line, front 7 skills group? Organize it however you want.
Oh boy.
Best, I'm going to say in the last couple of weeks, Morningside and Carroll College's best have the best D-lines that
I would agree.
I've seen in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think linebackers, D-line, I would say that. O-line, I'm still going to go Keiser. I think are really, really good. Skill, man, St. Thomas has got some weapons, man.
St. Thomas and Montana Western were the two that just popped in my head like that. Yeah,
it's hard to argue.
And we're not like we're asked on the spot, so this will lead to you don't respect us because you didn't like Indiana Wesleyan has a great skill group too.
Secondary skill group, yeah, no doubt.
Yep. Let's see. Would be curious to ask midweek. But don't love the likelihood of a Frontier rematch happening right away in the playoffs. Would like to see more travel restricted financially. So one thing we will learn Wednesday night in the interview with Dr. Jesse Gotting, this is a good promotion for you to tune in Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. The NAIA has a policy that teams from the same conference, and that includes teams that are divisionally in the same conference, so like the KCAC and the HAC are considered to be in the same conference. The NAIA has a rule that in the first round, they will not rematch teams from the same conference. So if there's some at-larges from the Frontier that end up in that 13 through 20, in that opening weekend, they will not rematch those teams against one another. Now, the next week, when we get into the round of 16, they absolutely will. All bets are off at that point, but they have said in the first round they will not do it. So that does give a little separation there for those teams to have to play someplace else and against someone else. But it is highly likely that you'll see those conference matchups then the following week in the NAIA Championship Series. I said I would check Instagram. I need to check Instagram for any questions here, Pat. Hour and 20 minutes on this show tonight. Holy cow.
Great. The interaction's been fantastic. Our fans are awesome. Great questions. People really, really thinking, digging deep and putting out some great questions. Certainly.
Nothing on the Instagram this week, even though we are streaming live on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Appreciate everybody watching that. McPherson game thoughts. They played a great game, went on the road, got the win. Talked about it in other leagues. You have to be able to go on the road and win, because that more than likely in the postseason, you're going to be asked to do that. And if you can't go win a big game on the road, you're going to struggle in the postseason. I thought their offense looked really good. Maybe the defense not as good as I would have wanted it to perform, but a win's a win on that one. And congrats to Mac for getting that one. Are you, Pat, do you see the chat on your side, or do you only see them when I flash them up?
When you flash them up.
Okay. So I'm trying to, I could ask questions all day. So get an energy drink or a coffee. No, we're going to wrap it up here. We both have lives and families and wives and children. So we've got like 10.
I'm dragging.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes tops on this one. We'll get to a couple more questions. Do appreciate the people that check out the show every week and like what we do. Thanks to everybody. I kind of knew on Twitter this weekend, Pat, that we would have a pretty big audience for this show, just because the mentions were going up. The questions on Twitter were going up. And that happens every year this time of year. I can go back historically through 20 years of web traffic on the Victory Sports Network. And the season does this. We spike, then we do this. And then as we get to the end of the season, we start doing this. And then on Selection Sunday, it is like, somebody took the paddles and hit a heart, and it just goes beep, clear to the top. That Selection Sunday will be huge. Everybody checking out this show, be sure to put it on your calendar to be here on the night of Selection Sunday. We'll be broadcasting live. We'll probably come on a little early, because typically Selection show, that's going to start at 6 o'clock for the NAIA. So we'll probably try to jump on 5:30 to get through what happened in the weekend, give some analysis, and then we'll go live to the Selection show from the NAIA and then come back with our analysis. So you just watch the whole thing right here.
It'll be fun. Can't wait for that.
Trying to see any other questions here and I'm sorry if I skipped over. There's a bunch in the chat here that I'm trying to get to. I think that's a lot of probably what we've got. I mean, there's a lot of, hey, who's going to get the at-large? Who do you think's going to get in here? I could sit here and guess all night, but I will give more analysis to it this week. Unlike some people out there, and this is not me patting myself on the back, Pat, but I don't want to just throw out wild predictions that I have no information on, just for clicks and to get people to come to the show and argue with me, or to get like the notoriety. I love the fact that we have got this audience and we've got people coming back and it's starting to grow. But as you and I said when we started this, we literally just want to do the show with one another. And if one person watched, and it was usually your sister, that's all we cared about. So I appreciate everybody coming in, but we want this to be the informed show. We want it to show that the coaches and the administrators come to, because we have the information and the thoughtfulness, and not just going, oh, wow, that was a great game.
Right.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
People expect that from the godfather of NAIA media. I'm calling you that. That's your new name. You're the godfather. You started.
When I was younger, I was the NAIA guru. But as I've gotten older, and now that I'm a dad, maybe godfather is more fitting.
Yeah. Right.
I like it.
Right. I mean, we've had a lot of experience in this affiliation, Jason. And again, I'm on the other side of it. From where you were, you're the media side, I was the coaching side. But we've always had these conversations. People, we kind of told that we've had these conversations for years and years. Usually at the National Coaches Convention over cold drinks,
cold beer.
Quite a few of them. But yeah, we've been setting this up for like 20 years. We really have. Think about it.
The funny thing is, we are not PTI. We are not Wilbon and Kornheiser here. But when you hear the origin story as how like that show got started, like those guys used to go at one another, at the Washington Post, and everybody said, when they went on TV, well, yeah, that's what we saw every day. It's just on TV now. This is honestly like every phone call, every interaction like Pat and I had, that is essentially this, me yelling NAI things at him and him going, really? You really think so?
Well, it's definitely the G-rated or at least PG version of.
That's maybe how we should raise some money.
Yeah, are a little different. We keep it clean. We keep it clean.
I think maybe that's how we could do a fundraiser. We could have the subscription show. We could have like the rated R show you have to subscribe to so that we don't offend some of the people out there. Because Pat and I are very much aware that the majority of NAIA institutions are Christian liberal arts institutions of God and faith and all of that. And I am very much aware that the way that I talk to my friends and talk to Pat on the phone, I cannot do that on this show and expect those people to come back week after week and want to hear what I say. So I keep it professional. I keep it as if I think of it as back when I was doing morning radio on a light rock station. Like if I couldn't say it on that light rock station when we were playing the best of Phil Collins, I shouldn't probably say it here. I've had a couple slips. Yeah,
it's not too bad. Not too bad. I think I said pissed off one time.
Yeah.
Because I still am pissed off that Indiana Wesleyan lost to Valpo. Still angry about it.
Still are.
Yeah.
I said GD on this.
You did. You're repeating a story.
Yeah. It wasn't me that said it. It was my coach. Coaches are the bad influences.
Oh, we're the worst.
Up to that point, I'd never... Growing up on a dairy farm, I had never heard those words before in my life.
Right.
Yelled at a cow while screaming. Anyway, all right, we should wrap things up.
Overtime?
Do you have it? Overtime.
No, I'm just recovering from lost spotty cows in Wisconsin this week, bud.
Yeah.
It's a great beer, man. It's so good. It's exclusive to Wisconsin and no free ads here. I would like to see the brewery throw some sponsorship or something like that. Because
if New Glarus wants to sponsor the postseason show, we'll let it happen.
Well, I'm telling you what, their stock rose after yesterday. So that and cheese curds, buddy. Wow.
Ooh, yeah, Wisconsin cheese curds a good place to get it.
And there's a lot of variations of the cheese curds. And I found a few variations, and they're all delicious.
Oh yeah.
And Madison's a fun town. Great food town too. Highly recommend to explore and get some grub, man. Good college.
And I'm not saying this to disparage Madison, but in your visit there and where you stayed, how was the smell? You went outside, was there any...
Well, we were kind of in a rural part. The hockey rinks were outside the area. We went into town. The town was like a 20-minute drive. It's different. What's the... what are you referring to?
There's an area in Madison that if you stay, there's a paper mill not far from there. And you know that from the Pickwick Inn in Savannah, Tennessee. That walking out national championship morning and going, what is that smell?
Punch in the face.
Paper mill a quarter mile away from the Pickwick Inn.
Wisconsin's known for a ton of paper mills. So I didn't get that there. Mostly I smelled dope. That was mostly smelling that a lot more.
Well, it's Wisconsin, so
it's legal. Yeah, it's everywhere. My goodness. Yeah. No people in bars, man. What's going on with the youth of America? I guess they're getting... I don't know, man.
Either that or it's weird. The 40-year-old guys don't know the bars that the college kids go to. It's like we're not invited, Pat.
Well, I know. I went to those places because I wanted to experience. There's not a better time in my life in college.
Yeah.
I went to University of St. Francis, small private liberal arts school, but man, I had fun. And I enjoy that part. I love being on college campuses. I love the vibe, especially on a football Saturday. Wisconsin was on the road last night, so I would watch the game at a local establishment. It was just kind of weird, not very subdued group. It wasn't really cranked up, man. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's especially I think when you get into some of those college towns. I mean, you've kind of got the bars that cycle that become the popular ones, and that's where everyone's at. And they get tougher and tougher to find. I've seen that in some of my travels too. That even going back to Nebraska. On a Saturday game day, like there's 2 or 3 staples, but some of the other ones that you would just be filled to the gills. You walk into and you're like, oh wow, this is pretty easy. We even see it here in Fargo. Like in Fargo, there's kind of a radius around the dome that on a Saturday morning, those places are going to be hipping and hopping, but maybe on a Saturday night, you go back to those same places and it's a ghost town. And
strange to me.
Everybody's partying in a warehouse with some EDM music playing. I think that's what's happening these days.
Yeah, one other thing real quick here. So the place I went to is called Bratz. It's a well-known place in Madison. It's a Wisconsin bar. And they have, to steal a reference from the great Eastbound and Down show from Kenny Powers, They had you get like the hot dogs, the brats, the typical Wisconsin fare, the curds, and there's tons and tons of beer, mostly Spotted Cow. But they also have a fixins table, or like a buffet. Oh yeah, the sauerkraut, like 9 different mustards, the onion variations, pickled and regular. They had a fixins bar. You know what I'm talking about? You're what she's That's hilarious. Yeah. The whole night I'm just going, hey man, go get some fixins, pickles. It was just awesome. Yeah,
that's a very upper Midwest thing. We see that in the Minnesotas, and we see it in North Dakota. Yeah, you get. I like it.
Love sauerkraut. It's so good.
Oh yeah, and if you're getting brats, like the kraut, everything, put it all on there.
Mustard, kraut, onions, the dill pickles, man, the fixins, they were awesome.
Basically what this overtime segment does, Pat, is it gets everybody so juiced about the NAIA. Yeah. We start talking about something else and they start clicking off. This way, when we end the show like we're about to do here, it's not a disappointment. It's like, well, they were done anyway.
Right.
So
I'm out of go.
I am too, man. Yeah. We're just after the regular season is over, we are just going to have an overtime show, and we're going to do no prep, no talk about it. We're just literally going to come in and talk about it after the season on some Sunday night, because it's really like Pat and I get to talking and knowing one another, and then we'll convince ourselves that we need to go to the NAIA coaches convention and probably get in a bunch of trouble, and then it'll be bad. It'll be bad.
I'm working on that still. We got to work on that.
I'm kind of looking at it too. I'm trying to. It actually might work in my schedule, so we'll talk off air on it. Maybe we can make something happen. Only if I can share a room with you and sleep on the floor. on a couch cushion for old time's sake.
Yep.
Make it. You got the flip out couch, and then I'm the guy that takes the cushions off the couch and line them up on the floor, and then sleeps with his head over the cushion.
You've come a long way, man. I mean, you're a great salesman. You're in leadership now. You know, you can afford your own room now. Back in the old sport, the college fans days, the budget was tight. I know. Hey Pat, can I sleep on your floor, buddy?
Get those Marriott points rolling for me.
Blanket.
There you go.
We're way too old to sleep on floors, man. We can't do that anymore.
No, I can't. If I got to sleep on the floor, I wouldn't go. I'm going to be completely honest.
I wouldn't move for 2 weeks if I had to sleep on the floor.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. Hey, everybody.
Great job,
Huge crowd tonight. We thank everybody for watching, all your questions. Don't forget, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, we have the NAIA Championship selection information show. It's not a selection show, but learn more about the NAIA postseason process and how that's all going to work. That's going to be Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. For Pat Donnelly, I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley from the Victory Sports Network. Thanks for checking it out, folks. We'll see you next Sunday at the same time. Have a good one.